Winter nil winter intensifies surely the first ever 40-1 draw no bet pick. And we've got Cup Fever. We know how to do it. FA Cup third round means the return of the over 4.5 and over 5.5 goals double, which gave us glory at 16s and 66-1 in the first round. And that'll be the NTT20 betting show, sponsored by AK Bet. It's for over 18s only. We'll be making betting picks ahead of a skinny docket of League One, League Two action and a big old slate of FA Cup third round fixtures. Therefore, this is for over 18s only, and we ask that everyone listening or watching be gamble aware, understand the risks that come with gambling. Make sure you brush up on them. Head to gambleaware.org to do so. Last week, we understood the value of a NAP winner because the double NAP of QPR was a winner at 6-4, and that wiped out the fact that our next bests, long shots, and goal scorers were all losers, and that was pretty lucky given the nature of that winning goal, but we'll take it.
Ilias Chair should have scored to make it 3-1. So, yeah. But then also, Mark McGuinness missed an absolute sitter to make it 2-2.
I read it as some positive karma because the over 2.5 goals quad at 15-2 saw two early games finish 1-0 and 0-0. The Burton Northampton game, 1-0. And I assume, George, that Norwich Coventry finished 1-0. I turned off when the clock hit 90, just assuming that was a winner.
Forson is the man that he's not going to get a Christmas card from us next Christmas. With two injury time goals to make it 2-1. So 1 goal scored after 92 minutes, 3 goals scored when the final whistle is blown, and that paid to our multi. Upsetting.
We're loving the comments that you guys are leaving on YouTube. We're loving the comments on Spotify as well. I mean, JSR did do that one thing that I specifically asked people not to do, which is to message after the matches had taken place saying, I was quietly confident that Grimsby draw no bet shout was a bad one. We won comfortably. I mean, we just asked for one thing. That is a disagreement. We love it. That's part of the game. But just be a bit more like Tom Dawes and Anthony Shaw, who commented on Spotify before the games, explaining why they didn't love George's pick of Stockport against Mansfield. Both are proven right, as well as being good blokes.
Interestingly, that's the pick, I think, almost ever that I've had the most kickback on, and everyone was right. So fair play to them. Hugh Davis messaged me on one of our groups saying he thought it was a bad one. Paul Wiggins on Twitter got in touch telling me that it was a bad one. So just everyone thought it was bad, and it was bad. So well done, Hive Mind.
What's your best bet this weekend? What's your nap?
This is a good one. This is nap of the season so far, and it's in the FA Cup, and it fits the same. I mean, I kind of feel like we should just do a splinter show called Winter Nil Winter, where we just do Winter Nil bets, because that is basically what this show is becoming. Our job is to find the best value picks. If we don't flag these up, people may not see them. But I just cannot believe that we can back Brentford to beat Plymouth Argyle to 0 at 11-8. Blows my mind. Now, as Goffey said on this show a couple of weeks ago, this market is linked to two things, basically the Asian handicap price and the Asian goal line. And understandably, the goal line for this game is going to be incredibly high. And that is because Brentford's games at home this season in the Premier League have been ridiculous, like stupidly high scoring. They haven't kept a clean sheet at home since the 0-0 draw against Fulham back on the 4th of May, so back into last season. They've conceded loads of goals. So they conceded 3 against Wolves, 3 against Ipswich, 2 against Bournemouth, 2 against Newcastle. And their last 2 games, they've lost both of them at home and conceding 5 goals. So I can kind of get it, and I understand why the goal line is therefore high. However, their best price 5 on to win this game against an Argyle side who, as we've spoken about so many times, away from home have to be the worst team I've ever seen in comparison to their league opponents. There's no other way to express it. When you look at, apart from one good first half against Sheffield United, where they didn't score, but they probably deserved to, consistently, they can't really get anywhere near the opposition's goal. And they've scored 4 goals away from home all season, most of them long-range strikes, 2 of them deflected. I mean, it's just consistently, we're now in mid-January and we're still seeing this. There'll be those out there who will think, well, Wayne Rooney is now gone, and so this might change. And I kind of thought that. And I didn't back Stoke to beat Plymouth Argyle to 0. And I was lucky because they drew 0-0. But when you look at the way the game went, and you look at how the game progressed with no Wayne Rooney in the dugout, it was exactly the same. Plymouth Argyle mustered 2 shots in the whole game, away at a Stoke team who have been, for the last 2 or 3 months, conceding the most shots in the league behind Plymouth Argyle, and yet they still couldn't really find a way through. There is something up with this group of players' ability to perform on the road. And the notion in my mind that they are going to go to a Premier League side and fare any better is ridiculous, even though this is a Premier League side who've been shipping goals. But if you kind of drill down a little bit further into this Brentford side and their home games, yeah, they've conceded 3 goals against Ipswich. Ipswich, a team who are towards the bottom end of the Premier League this season. But that's kind of the when you look at the poor opposition of team they've played over the course of the season, that's the outlier. They conceded 1 goal against Leicester, and then in 2 cup games in the Carabao Cup, they conceded 1 goal against Orient and 1 goal against Sheffield Wednesday. You look at the way those games went against Orient and Wednesday, they conceded very, very little against Wednesday at all. I think it was 0.4 XG in total and 0.8 XG against Leyton Orient, the majority of which was taken up by the Cooper goal up very relatively early on. So with playing against Premier League opposition, Premier League attacks is very, very different to playing against visual opposition who are basically operating at best like a mid-table League One side away from home. And I see very, very little reason, even if Thomas Frank decides to make loads of changes and to rotate, why they should fare any better and why they won't be managed out of the game relatively easy, like so many teams who are much, much worse than Brentford have already managed to do this season. So, yeah, for Brentford to be 5-on to win this game, but to be getting 11-8, and at the current moment of recording, that is the best price in the whole market from AK Bets. No one else is 11-8 or better. But obviously things that can change. But AK pushed out to 11-8 best price right now. I can't fathom how that can be a fair reflection of the opportunity, given how short Brentford are to win the game. Chance they do so and keep a clean sheet. So I am, I'm bullish enough just to know that if Brentford concede here, one or two things are going to have to happen. Either Argyle take one of their few chances, or we see a massive improvement from Argyle, and I don't really see any reason to think there will be an improvement there. So yeah, 11-8, my nap, and yeah, as you can probably tell, I am relatively invested in this, both financially and emotionally.
Well, sprinting into the winter hinterland with another one. Birmingham win 0. 7-4 with AK Bets at home to Lincoln City. This one in the Cup. I think it's a midday kickoff on Saturday. So mark your card for that. They were part of my win 0 double long shot last time out, at which Ilan Meslier had other ideas about for the Leeds and Hull game. 3-3 draw, very much not a Leeds win 0. But Birmingham did win 0, 3-0 against Wigan. And that's the theme at the moment with Birmingham City. I don't think their attack and their attacking data is particularly excellent, or at least elite for League One level. But their defence and their defensive output and their defensive data absolutely is. And 9 of their last 12 league wins have been 0. So when they do win, generally, it has been 0. And that's because, compared to the first month or two of the season, they sorted out the issue in goal with Allsop brilliant since taking the gloves off Peacock Farrell. They sorted their issue from set pieces where they were conceding. It felt like a goal every single game. Not anymore. And because they dominate territory, they keep the ball well away from their goal and they suppress shots really, really well. So even without that attacking data, to back up them being, the greatest League One side of all time, it's still difficult to be too concerned about that, I think, when they've only failed to score in 2 of 23 league games, when consistently, even in games where they're looking a bit stodgy as an attacking unit, the individual quality of Stansfield or May or Williamson or Iwata or Laird can unlock things and score a goal. They're up against a Lincoln side that haven't scored in their last 4 league games, and they haven't been a good open play attacking team, Lincoln, for all season, basically. At best, early on when they were setting a playoff pace, it was set pieces and counter-attacking, really, but that seems to be on the wane as well. They've got almost always 2 strikers at the top of the pitch, but no consistent way, it seems, of creating chances for them in their last 4 games where they haven't scored a goal. It's not the case where they've just been unlucky or wasteful in front of goal. It's only 7.75 shots per game in that chunk, only 2.75 shots on target in that chunk, and that's against Shrews, Bolton, Rotherham and Stevenage. All of them actually pretty decent defensive sides, but certainly not as good as Birmingham. So because this is a cup game, you might worry about rotation here, but the schedule's been the same for both sides, and it's harder on teams like Lincoln than it is for teams like Birmingham City. I mean, God forbid we might see Mark Leonard start a game for Blues here. Yokoyama, Scott Wright, Lyndon Dykes are the sort of players that might come in and start here. That's pretty decent for me. It's another win 0 pick. It makes me think of, that there's sometimes a type of sweets or chocolate or a certain food that you just eat too much over one period of time and you go from loving it to not being able to enjoy it anymore. That is not the case with win 0 picks. I'm still loving them. They still taste good. Birmingham win 0 at, 7-4 with AK Bets at home to Lincoln. That's my nap. Next up,
another win 0 bet. Sadler's 0.
Double NB.
Yeah, double MB. Walsall to 0 home to Tranmere. This is live on Sky. 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. Tranmere have scored 2 goals in their last 5 away from home. They are in serious trouble. Their away form is really quite worrying. They've lost all of their last 5 games, not really creating much at all. We saw Walsall, who started the season so incredibly strong defensively, that kind of waned to an extent. But in their last couple of weeks, I mean, obviously the results have stayed very good and their attacking output has certainly improved, especially with Nathan Lowe and his output improving to take him now top of the League 2 goal scoring charts. But their last 3 games, home games, have all been 1-0. They beat Barrow, Doncaster and Newport 1-0, 2-0 and 2-0. And have done so relatively comfortably with all 3 of them. This to me looks like a bit of a mismatch in terms of a league game, with Walsall being by far and away the best team in League 2 and 10 points clear. Shows that against a Tranmere side who, especially on the road, are really poor and can't really muscle their way into many games at this level. I don't really see any reason why Tranmere should trouble a Walsall side who are so strong defensively. And yeah, again, they are 13-8 AK bets, about a win to 0 here. Not quite as strong as the Argyle one, as you can tell, but certainly enough to persuade me to get involved and have it as my next best.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Double next best. Walsall win to 0. The 13-8 with AK bets, top price as we record. And look, Walsall have won 10 of their 23 league games to 0 this season, 43% of them, up against this Tranmere side that have scored 0.64 goals per game away from home in the league, have lost to 0 in 5 of their last 9 away in League 2. And Walsall have had that extra day's rest, or many extra days rest, because their last game was postponed. And Nathan Lowe is still there, despite going back to train for a day at Stoke this week and causing a bit of excitement there. Still playing for Walsall, seemingly scoring every single game. Seems likely to score here. At Walsall win to 0 is a double next best. My goal scorer is in League 2. It's not Nathan Lowe. It's another very hot attacking player. That is Jack Lancaster of Crewe Alex. They are playing at Swindon. He is 7-2 with AK bets to score any time. Now, this is one of those, I think, where because Lancaster has played the majority of his football as either a right winger or a number 10, that's how he's being priced up. But for the last couple of weeks, certainly the last 4 or 5 games, when he has played, he is playing up front in a 3-5-2, normally with Omar Bogle doing kind of the physical work, the focal point work, and Lancaster running in behind, drifting wide, getting on the ball, properly kind of leading the line. And here are his shot stats in the last 6 weeks or so. 5 shots, 3 shots, 5 shots, 5 shots, no shots. 3 shots, 1 shot in 24 minutes off the bench, which was a goal. 7 shots against Bromley, 3 on target, 1 goal, 1 assist. He has scored in 6 of his last 8 appearances. They're playing against a team in Swindon who have not kept a clean sheet in 15 games. He absolutely feels like Crewe's most likely goal scorer to me. And I think at 7-2, that's a very, very nice price indeed. So Jack Lancaster anytime, 7-2 for Crewe against Swindon. That's my goal scorer.
My goal scorer is a rare first goal scorer selection going back to the FA Cup. I'm putting up Matteo Joseph to score first for Leeds against Harrogate Town at 4-1, which is like not that far away from the price he was to be Championship top goal scorer back in August, which is pretty mad. I think he was 8-1, 7-1, about there. This is helped by team news, where Patrick Bamford is out for a month, as confirmed by Daniel Farker today. Joel Piroux has a slight knock and is not going to be risked at all. So you would assume from that Joseph will play 90 minutes here. And up against the Harrogate side, Leeds obviously huge favourites to win the game. It just seems like a very obvious one where a guy who is quite clearly got it and is a very good goal scorer, this is an opportunity for him to fill his boots. And I wouldn't, I looked at kind of backing him to score 2 or more and score a hat-trick and whatever. I guess you never really know in the FA Cup. He's still, if they're 3-0 up, 4-0 up with half an hour to go, with the injuries they've got, could get taken off, which is why I've gone for the first goal scorer. But I think we can be pretty confident he's going to start. We can be pretty confident that Leeds will be the team that open the scoring. And to my mind, he's very, very obviously the most likely player to do that if he is on the pitch. So yeah, 4-1, there seems to be plenty in there for me to back the starting striker for a team who are however many million on. That's exaggeration, but you know what I mean? They are so short to win the game. 4-1 for the main striker to score first. I'd say 20% doesn't quite collate with my view on how likely that is.
For my long shot, I want a short-range header, really, ideally. For Carl Piergiani of Stevenage, anytime price, 15-2. It's pretty difficult to sell Stevenage against Burton as a spectacle because Stevenage have failed to score in 11 of their 23 league games. Burton have failed to score in 11 of their 24 league games. That is quite nuts. I won't be watching this game, but set-piece goal feels like a goer here. Burton vulnerable on that front. Set-piece goals conceded per 90 in League One. They are third equal for the most per Opta, conceding just over one in every 2 games so far this season. They've conceded the 4th most set-piece shots per 90. In the last couple of weeks, they have conceded headers from set-pieces, from Fernandez of Peterborough, from Hellick of Huddersfield. Those guys known as 2 of the taller, most aerially dominant centre-backs in the league. They played Stevenage in the Trophy in December. It was 4-0 to Stevenage. 2 of the 4 goals came from corners. Pidge went close in the build-up to one of the goals, a scrappy goalmouth scramble. As for Stevenage, 43% of their shots come from set pieces. This is not an open play attacking team. This is a set piece team. And who's the big Pidge with the big head and the great hair? It's Carl Piergianni. Only 1 goal this season, and his shots are down a little bit from previous seasons where he got 4 goals, 7 goals, 3 goals, 5 goals in the 4 seasons before this one. He gets first contact so often. Quite often he's getting first contact to knock it back across for a better chance. But I think with some strong delivery, and given that I think Burton are a bit of a soft touch from set pieces at the moment, and Piergianni headed efforts are on the agenda, and hopefully a headed goal at 15-2 with AK bets.
Long shot time. Here we go. Salford. Draw no bet at Manchester City at 40-1 is my long shot.
40-1.
Yeah.
Draw out the equation.
So if it's a draw, nothing happens. I don't get anything for it. I should caveat this by saying that I will be backing this, but I'll probably also be backing Salford on the Asian handicap and in various different other ways. It won't be quite such a big price, but for the premise of this, and to try and land a bit of a punt, 40-1 for my long shot. There are a couple of angles with this. Firstly, this is the 3rd time that Carl Robinson has played Pep Guardiola in cup competitions, or Pep Guardiola's Manchester City cup competitions. Twice when he was Oxford manager, they played against each other. One game in particular, which I'm pretty sure you were with me at, was a 3-1 City win, where at the time Oxford managed the most shots that a Pep Guardiola Manchester City team had faced in any competition. That has since been broken, but it was, yes. That day Oxford had more shots against City than any... Wait, why are you making that face?
On that day, Oxford United took more shots against Manchester City than Pep Guardiola had faced in any match in his career at Barcelona,
at City,
Bayern Munich,
at City, just that City team. I think it was over 20. Anyway, I mean,
genuinely speechless.
Now it's happening fairly regularly, and that's part of the reason why I fancy Salford in this. Yeah, they sort of come into this in unbelievable form. You know, I think 8 of their last 9 wins have been 2-0. They are really solid defensively. It doesn't help things that Stefan Negri has been recalled this morning back to Oxford. He's been such a big player for them and really solid defensively. But even so, they're a team that go to a City side who are obviously on the improve, it looks like. But I've watched a fair bit of City in the last few weeks where I've been staggered as to just how bad they've been. Like, I know the results have been bad, but their performance level itself has been way off what you'd expect from a top 2, top 3 Premier League side. And it's obviously a bit of you're taking a chance at a big price, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Salford are able to stay in this game for longer than they're anticipated to. If they are able to use their good defensive record coming into this and restrict City to fewer chances than we'd necessarily expect. We know in their teenage keeper they've got a very, very good shot stopper who I'm sure will be kept busy here. But all in all, my theory is that the discrepancy or the Asian line between these two teams is way too big. And in doing so, kind of every line should be valued. So the 40-1 taking out the draw, to me, is a fair way to play this at a big price. Yeah, I mean, it may look foolish. They go behind early. They don't wrestle their way back into it. But this is the FA Cup where upsets do happen. And Salford currently one of the informed teams in the EFL against a side who've been woefully out of form recently. So, yes, Salford 40-1, draw no bet against Manchester City away from home is my... I'll be so annoyed if they draw and then they go through. That would really hurt. But yeah, that's my my long shot.
Yeah, I got quite excited about the prospect of Hakeem Adelican facing up Kyle Walker 1v1. Walker saying, "Go on, son, beat me and get a shot off," and Adelican going like, "Yeah, all right, I've been doing that my whole life, mate. Yeah. Thanks very much." I'll be scoring at, what is he, 10 or 11 to 1 Adelican. I like that a lot. Good fun that. We've got now the FA Cup tradition of a over 4.5 goals and over 5.5 goals double. Ridiculous winner this in the first round. The over 4.5 at 18-1, the over 5.5 at 66-1. We go again. I'm doing Coventry against Sheffield Wednesday. Now, I must admit, there is nothing that gets my juices flowing less than a championship versus championship matchup in the FA Cup third round. And it is difficult to imagine this being a massive priority for either side. Coventry just want to finish the season strongly under Frank Lampard. You know, that they have a chance of making the playoffs if they put together an amazing run in the second half of the season. And with the quality that they have in their squad, if everyone's fit, they might still think that they could do that. They won't probably want what they might consider the distraction of the FA Cup, given that it was their incredible run to the semi-final last year, almost beating United at Wembley, that seemed to derail their playoff push and has been held up as a bit of an issue. The exhaustion that they all felt after the Lord Mayor's show, not ideal there. So that's motivation-wise, it's kind of questionable for them. For Wednesday, they have a legitimate chance of making the playoffs, and that, again, has to be a bigger priority than a deep cup run. Last year in the third round, Coventry had a 6-2 against Oxford, and Sheffield Wednesday had a 4-0 against Cardiff in the third round. So both quite goalsy there. Wednesday have the third highest total goals in the Championship this season, 3 per game. Coventry are 7th at 2.73. So these are among the goalsiest teams in the Championship. Both of them pretty wobbly defensively if you apply the right pressure. So that's what I'm adding, George. I should say the over 4.5 goals double here is at 18-1. The over 5.5 goals double is at 66-1. And you are adding...
Ipswich against Bristol Rovers is my addition to this. Ipswich games at home, obviously in the Championship, were incredibly high scoring. Up against League One opposition, I anticipate they will probably look to cut loose and, under Kieran McKenna, look to rack up a bit of a score. And there'll be players coming in trying to impress as well. Ali Hamady maybe being one of those to do so. And then a Bristol Rovers side who've seen quite a lot of goals recently. We had the 3-2 home defeat against Leyton Orient, a 3-0 defeat at Stevenage. Not the best defensively, but under a new manager, they'll be sure to want to go there and take the game to Ipswich. So it just feels like a bit of a game from another time. You know, Ipswich's approach to these games at home has had to change given their new environment, whereas this should be a return to relentless attacking, probably at the expense of some defensive work, but in order to rack up a bit of a score and win it comfortably. So yeah, Ipswich, Bristol Rovers, my over 4.5, over 5.5 selection.
Very nice. So it's a weekend where we will be wrapping up warm on account of winter nil winter, both literal and figurative, but we'll also be feverish with cup fever. So stay hydrated, everyone. That's important in those conditions. And let's go well this weekend. Please recap your selections for us, George Ellick.
My strong nap is Brentford to beat Argyle to 0 at 11-8. Next best 13-8 about Walsall to beat Tranmere to 0. And then my goal scorer is Matteo Joseph at 4-1 to score first for Leeds against Harrogate. My long shot, Salford, draw no bet at 40-1 away at Manchester City. And my leg of the double is Ipswich against Bristol Rovers.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Enjoy this weekend. A bit of a mishmash, isn't it, with FA Cup, with some League One, League Two action as well. We'll be with you on Monday, where we will touch on the major stories from the weekend, but mostly we're doing mid-season predictions, and we cannot wait. Cheers to AK Bets for sponsoring this podcast. Have a magnificent weekend. Go out.